5 kilometres and 100 years to be precise, the Tour was celebrating its Alpine centenary on stage 18 with an altitude finish on top of the mountain that had started it all. Since Gustave Garrigou got off and pushed through the mud and the snow in 1911, all the great names had climbed the Col de Galibier on their way to famous stage wins or to overall victory. But in a century of Tour visits, no one had ever won at the top. For the first time ever on stage 18, the race was going to stop to enjoy the view. Hundreds of thousands of fans had turned out for the Galibier's 100th Tour birthday party, knowing that they were going to get two stages for the price of one. On stage 19, the Galibier would be the warm-up act for Alpe d'Huez. On stage 18, though, it was the headliner, the highest summit finish in Tour de France history. So, almost a challenge from the race organisers to the riders to produce something special. And there were signs that the big names were plotting something from the makeup of the day's breakaway group. 19 riders, including 2 each from Leopard Trek, BMC and Euskaltel, men who might be useful to their leaders later in the stage. The template for recent tours had been for the favourites to wait for the final climb of the day to open hostilities. But on the climb of the Col d'Izoard, with 60 kilometres still left to race, the template was about to be redesigned.
Andy Schleck has lifted the ante, so he's used his last man, Stuart O'Grady. There's a reaction only from Keremai, I think it is, who has started for Europe car. Now, can Tommy Voigtler answer this one? They're going to have to do something. He's gone very early.
Tommy Voigtler, what about Alberto Contador, and what about Cadel Evans? They've got to respond to this. This is the steepest part of the climb. We're about to go into an area, Phil, called La Casse Desert, the desert of stones, and this is the worst part of the climb. It's 10-11%, and there's no reaction at all from anyone. If Andy Schleck wants to do this, he may well be putting a lot of pressure on the rest of the main field to give brother Frank a nice, easy ride.
Well, this has had to have shocked the race leaders, because he's gone so far from the finish of today's stage of the Tour de France. They will be unwise not to react to this, and they are hesitating. The teammate of Voigtler has come back here to Voigtler's side. Cadel Evans was right there on the front when the move was made. He's the centre rider of the three, and Contador is in the dead centre of this group, and he's not reacting either.
With the help of his teammate Maxime Montfort, who'd been one of the day's escapees, Andy Schleck rode past the breakaway riders and kept going on his own. As he hit the Galibier, he seemed to be heading not just for an historic stage win, but the yellow jersey. Behind him, Cadel Evans was doing most of the work in a chasing group that had all the other contenders, but no cohesion.
Schleck has just come through, 5 kilometres to go. Cadel Evans is the only man chasing. Everybody else is following the Australian. The gap is down to 3 minutes 14, and second by second, it's a painful way to earn your money, but Cadel Evans is clawing himself back into the Tour. Face of Cadel Evans here now, he doesn't even look at anybody. He just wants, they're the flags of the city of Luxembourg, or the region of Luxembourg, rather than the Grand Duchy itself, and they are going to be waving violently, or they already have been, because this is the peloton who comes through. These people have literally walked up the side of the Col de Galibier. They couldn't even walk up the road today, and they come up the side of it. As the flags are shown to the riders here of the region of the Alps, it's 3:14 is the gap, 3:45 to the Sanchez group now. He's falling away here from a top three finish. This is Sanchez here.
With him, Heimar Zubeldia, a former teammate a number of years ago before he moved across to Team Radio Shack. And Eddie Merckx, the winner of 5 Tours de France, and he, Phil, will appreciate a ride like this.
Oh, you can bet your life he's going to shout words of encouragement. This is what Merckx would have done. This is how Merckx would have won his Tour de France. He'd be full of admiration. He's shouting at Andy Schleck.
It's a tough tactic to move at 60 kilometres from the end of a stage of the Tour de France, but when you've got 3 outside categorised climbs, it really is a tall order. Cadel Evans knows that. Cadel Evans should theoretically be a lot fresher. Alberto Contador still happy to hide in the wheels.
Well, the amazing thing is, too, behind all this, yes, we might have a new leader tonight, but the erstwhile leader, Tommy Voigtler, will only drop into second place. And Cadel probably down to third at the end of the day, with one more day in the mountains to come. Voigtler can still think of a podium in Paris after a ride like this.
As we go now past 4 kilometres to go for Andy Schleck, he seems to be a little bit more motivated, Phil. This is the most difficult part of the climb. It's an average gradient of 9% over the next kilometre. And still Cadel Evans out of the saddle, battling with the machine, battling with his body, realising that this is the moment that he has to save the Tour de France. A little bit like you mentioned earlier, Stephen Roach, when he did it in 1987, he had to fight his way back into the Tour, having lost it at the start of the climb.
Well, at the moment, Cadel Evans has gone from being 118 ahead of Andy Schleck back to 150 behind him. He might handle 150 in the time trial on Saturday, he might not.
This is the Sammy Sanchez group. These guys are in all kinds of difficulty as they've still got a long way to go to the top of this climb. Hard to believe, Phil, that 3 kilometres to go, that these roads a couple of days ago were covered with snow.
Well, the impossible is sometimes possible, and Frank Schleck is only 3 seconds behind Cadel Evans overall. And you can pull 3 seconds out in a sprint finish to the top of the Galibier. The Schleck brothers could be on a great day out today.
Cadel's got it locked in now at 3:08. He's not going forwards, he's not going backwards. They're riding at about exactly the same pace as Andy Schleck.
Evans continues to set the pace all the way up the Galibier. No one has helped him. Voigtler be prepared just to follow him. And this is the composition of the group at the moment of Contador, Schleck, Basso, Nicholas Roach, Evans, Cunego, Thomas Voigtler, Pierre Roland. That is it. He's eliminated all of the others on this climb, Cadel Evans. And it looks as though Nicholas Roach just unhitched at the back there as well.
Well, I'm amazed by the yellow jersey of Thomas Voigtler. I think once again the tactics of the race, the way they're riding this race, the tempo riding they're doing actually plays into the hands of Thomas Voigtler. This year's Tour de France will allow this Frenchman to start to dream about possibly coming to the Tour de France next year and trying to win it for France, a title they haven't earned since 1985 and Bernard Hinault. Schleck looking over his shoulder, looking down at the curves and the straight lines a little bit further down the road there, just to see if he can see what is happening. That should be 2 kilometres to go, that manner they've gone by.
2 kilometres to go at the moment. It looks like this. Thomas Voigtler will stay in second place with half a minute. Cadel Evans will be in third at 1:48. Frank Schleck will be fourth, and Contador 3:45. And there is confirmation of Alberto Contador. The champion of the Tour de France the past 2 years is yo-yoing on his favourite playground, and I think that's the end of the Tour de France for him as a winner this year.
Well, that's what Andy Schleck felt, you know, Phil. He said that the Tour de France would be decided in the last week of the race. It was all about the freshness. Alberto Contador's got the Giro d'Italia in his legs. Don't discount the man. He's got a huge heart and he's got a huge bag of courage, and he's pulled himself back into this group. But yes, he's having a hard time.
Pride has done that. Pride has forced him to come back onto the back of that group. He knows now that coming up to the last 2 kilometres of the day, it's been a real tough fight for the champion of the past 2 years and a 3-time Tour winner. He come back, but he's gone again.
Well, he tried with everything. That was the pride of Spain on his shoulders there, trying to push him back into that group.
Evans continues to fight to try and round it out to 3 minutes before Andy gets up to the finishing line. And look how he's reduced this with his incessant pacemaking. There's only 5 riders following Cadel Evans now.
He's churning a massive gear, the rider in the black and red jersey there, Cadel Evans, because all he's thinking about is trying to reduce the deficit onto Andy Schleck. Alberto Contador, well, he's just got to survive now and try and limit his losses, because he could be plummeting down the overall standings and maybe looking at himself dropping outside the top 7 or 8.
May well decide to retire from the Tour, but I don't think champions do that sort of thing, and Alberto Contador will try again tomorrow, possibly to win at Alpe d'Huez. As all the cheers on top of the Col de Galibier now go to this remarkable ride today, one of the great rides in modern times by Andy Schleck in the Tour de France. He took the race halfway up the Izoard, knowing he had to go early, and he took the risk of blowing his whole Tour de France out the window, and it isn't going to be the case. He should get the yellow jersey tonight. The chase is at 2 kilometres to go.
Separated by a kilometre. That on the slopes of a mountain like this corresponds to 3 minutes. I just saw the tunnel over to the left-hand side, and now he's on the final part of this climb. Alberto Contador is on the back foot in the Tour de France this year. He's never really looked very comfortable at all.
And now this man is getting his revenge. He's looking for yellow tonight and victory in Paris on Sunday.
You might just have noticed all of a sudden the green jersey of Pierre Rolland has come to the front for Thomas Voeckler. He's going to try and save that yellow jersey in the final 2 kilometres of today's stage.
2:37 is what Voeckler will not want to see on the clock, because that will cost him yellow. But they are so close to defending it. We are now just 19 seconds behind, and he could still be in yellow by a second. This is how he lost to eventually to Lance Armstrong.
Well, there's a little word there coming from Voeckler. Come on, let's keep this yellow jersey. He's really struggling. Evans is just there. He's come back. They saw that the French did not have that power. The dream was to try and protect the yellow jersey of Thomas Voeckler this afternoon, but there was no power in the engine room when they shouted down for it, so it's still up to Cadel Evans.
This has been a great fight by Cadel Evans. He's been left alone here. It's been an easy ride for Frank Schleck in many ways in the black there, who's watched his brother fly away today. But look now, 2 minutes 44. There is still a chance here for Voeckler to keep his lead. Andy is just praying for the end of the stage now. I think the legs have cried, enough is enough. He's fighting now. Yes, he's getting time gains, but is he going to get yellow?
But what is he going to do tomorrow? He's going to come about and do this all over again as Cadel Evans slowly pulls it back. 2:41, the yellow jersey, 2:40. It's now starting to tip towards the conservation of the yellow jersey by Thomas Voeckler. And he's going to have to say a big thank you very much, mate, to Cadel Evans.
Absolutely. 2:36, and Voeckler keeps yellow, and it is tumbling down. Andy Schleck is now absolutely on his limit here. Where is the finishing line as the clock continues to descend? It is 2:40 and falling. The empty road of the Col de Galibier, one man against the field and the clock.
The clock at 1 kilometre to go, Phil, has just said 2:35, so Thomas Voeckler has climbed himself back into the overall leader.
I don't believe this is an incredible tour. And take your hat off to this man today. He has been the most magnificent attacking cyclist in modern times in the Tour de France. But he's a matter of a kilometre too far. The legs are folding beneath his body here as he comes up to the line. He will win the stage, and that he thoroughly deserves, and he might win the Tour de France by Sunday. But is he going to be in yellow tonight, or is this incredible Frenchman, Tommy Voeckler, going to be in yellow for the 10th day? And he gets it. The clock starts now. 2 minutes 37 seconds is the time that we wanted to be seen by Andy Schleck to be the yellow jersey tonight. Voeckler is now lifting the pace. He must have been told he can keep yellow tonight. That's why he's trying to find the last few things. 45 seconds has gone by, 46 and counting. As now Cadel Evans again turns. He needs every second he can get to try and stay in this race, because the time trial will favour Cadel Evans.
Well, Frank Schleck sitting on his shoulder there. That's psychologically, again, a minute has gone by. Cadel Evans is the one still trying to save the jersey for himself later on in the Tour de France, but also today for Thomas Voeckler, who has been incredible on today's stage in the mountains. And Frank Schleck just sitting there waiting for the moment to pounce.
Well, as we claw and crawl our way up to the top of the Col de Galibier, we are looking for 2:37, and that will be curtains in yellow for Thomas Voeckler, who will be timed right to the line. He's got to fight all of the way. He knows what he's got to do. He's running now into the last minute to the summit to retain his yellow, 1:38, and going forward now, he's 100 metres to go. Now, there's no surprise. Frank Schleck has watched and waited. He'll sprint away for second place, but watch where the clock stops for the yellow jersey. 1:52. He's only 100 metres from the front. He's got to sprint. This is taking the clock back 7 years for little Tommy Voeckler as Frank Schleck comes away at 2:04. The gap for him. Now Evans, he's got it down to just on 2 minutes. He was 1:18 behind. Now he's not that far behind overall. 2:37. He's going to keep his yellow jersey. Take those pictures back to 2004. It is incredible, Paul. I just don't believe it. What a fighter.
Unbelievable. I don't think very many people would have given him a chance of keeping the overall lead this afternoon, but there's not very much in it, Phil. What kind of a day is it setting itself up for tomorrow?
Well, absolutely. There have been heroes galore today in the Tour de France. The biggest of them all, I suppose, yes, is Andy Schleck. But this man, 10 days in yellow now and refuses to lie down. And Cadel Evans had to fight to stay in the Tour de France today, and he's achieved that as well.
Another 1.5 minutes behind Thomas Voeckler was Alberto Contador, struggling over the line on the wheel of the polka dot jersey Jelle van Endert. And another 52 seconds behind them came Samuel Sanchez. A bad day for the two Spaniards who've been looking so strong in the past few stages. Here's the stage result then. Andy Schleck, 2 minutes and 7 seconds ahead of his brother. Cadel Evans riding to limit his losses to 2 minutes 15, and in the process pulling a group containing Ivan Basso and Thomas Voeckler along with him. Basso was fourth at 2 minutes 18, and Thomas Voeckler, who started the day 2:36 ahead of Andy Schleck and started the final climb over 4 minutes down, lost 2:21 at the line to keep his jersey by 15 seconds. So Andy Schleck had gone from complaining about dangerous descents to riding away to the highest stage win in Tour history, while the presence of his brother Frank behind encouraged their rivals to waste time looking at each other until Cadel Evans had taken charge. Of course, thanks partly to Evans pulling the group up the Galibier like a diesel locomotive, one man who hadn't lost any places on GC was Thomas Voeckler. His lead, though, was down to 15 seconds, and up to second place behind him was Andy Schleck. Frank Schleck was third at 1 minute and 8 seconds, 4 seconds ahead of Cadel Evans instead of 4 seconds behind. Damiano Cunego was up to fifth on the same time as Ivan Basso, 3 minutes 46. Alberto Contador was 4 minutes 40 down in 7th place. Samuel Sanchez 8th at 5:20. Now, half an hour after all that drama, another drama began. The cut-off time for elimination from the Tour ticked past and there was no sign of Mark Cavendish. He finally arrived in a group 35 minutes 40 behind the winner. The good news for him was that he had 87 other riders with him, more than half the field. And the rules allow for the reinstatement of a group arriving outside the cut-off if it's more than 20% of the peloton. The bad news was the rules also specify that those riders should be punished by the loss of 20 green jersey points. And since Jose Joaquin Rojas had been inside the time limit, Cav's lead was suddenly down from 35 to 15.